What if the person you trusted most, the one who promised to love and protect you forever, was living a complete lie? Imagine discovering that your spouse's entire identity was fabricated. Their college degree? A lie. Their acceptance to medical school? Never happened. The future you'd planned together? Built on a foundation of deception. For Lori Hacking, this nightmare became reality on July 16, 2004, when a simple phone call exposed her husband's years of elaborate lies. 5 days later, she was dead. This isn't just a story about murder. It's about the dangerous lengths someone will go to maintain their false reality, and how a web of lies can lead to the ultimate betrayal. Welcome to the tragic case of Lori Hacking, a vibrant 27-year-old woman whose life was cut short not by a stranger, but by the man who vowed to cherish her until death. In the quiet suburbs of Salt Lake City, a community was about to be shaken by a crime that would reveal how fragile trust can be, and how devastating the consequences when that trust is betrayed. As we delve into this case, we'll witness how years of deception culminated in a single horrific act, one that would forever change the lives of two families and leave a community questioning how well they truly know those closest to them. Lori K. Suarez was born on December 31, 1976, in Los Angeles, California. She was the adopted daughter of Thelma and Geraldo Suarez. Her father, a Spanish and Portuguese teacher, originally from Brazil, who met Thelma while they were both serving as missionaries for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Rio de Janeiro. This international connection gave Lori a rich heritage that would influence her throughout her life. After her parents divorced in 1987, Lori moved with her mother to Orem, Utah, where she would eventually attend Orem High School. Even in her teenage years, those around her could see that Lori was special, determined, compassionate, and intelligent. It was at Orem High School that she met Mark Douglas Hacking, a boy who would later become her husband and eventually her killer. Their high school romance would continue into adulthood, seemingly growing stronger with time. Those who knew Lori described her as exceptionally intelligent, kind, and compassionate. She excelled academically, graduating cum laude from the University of Utah in December 1999 with a bachelor's degree in management. Her instructor at the university noted her commitment to service through volunteer work, her enthusiasm for learning, and her strong sense of integrity. By 2004, she was working as a stockbroker's assistant at Wells Fargo, building a promising career that reflected her intelligence and work ethic. Lori's brother, Paul Suarez, would later recall that his sister would have loved Mark unconditionally as long as he was doing his best, regardless of his profession. This sentiment speaks volumes about Lori's character. She valued authenticity and effort over achievement or status. Even after her death, condolences and memories shared by the community highlighted her positive impact on others, with many remembering her beautiful smile and generous spirit. Mark Hacking was born on April 24, 1976, into what was described as a highly successful Mormon family. His father was a respected pediatrician, and his two brothers pursued successful careers as a doctor and an electrical engineer. From the outside, the Hacking family appeared to be the epitome of achievement and respectability within their community. This family background suggests a context where there might have been considerable pressure to achieve professionally. Growing up surrounded by high achievers, Mark likely felt an unspoken expectation to follow a similar path of academic and professional success. After high school, Mark and Lori's relationship continued to develop. They married in 1999, and to friends and family, they seemed to have a loving, supportive marriage. Photos from that time show a smiling couple, apparently happy and looking forward to building a life together. But beneath this perfect facade, Mark Hacking was hiding something that would eventually destroy their marriage and end Laurie's life. For approximately 8 years, Mark Hacking lived what investigators would later call a double life of deceptions, petty crimes, and failures. The most significant lies centered around his education and career aspirations. Mark claimed to have graduated from the University of Utah when in reality he had dropped out in 2002 without completing his degree. More alarmingly, he fabricated his acceptance to medical school at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. This wasn't just a small embellishment or a white lie told in a moment of weakness. Mark went to extraordinary lengths to maintain this fiction. He pretended to attend classes at the University of Utah, leaving home each day as if going to school. He studied medical textbooks at home to maintain the appearance of a pre-med student. He fabricated stories about exams, professors, and campus life. He created elaborate tales about his medical school application process. He even fabricated trips for medical school interviews, going so far as to pack bags and leave town, only to hide somewhere locally. And everyone, including Laurie, his parents, friends, and extended family, believed him. The deception was so convincing that no one had reason to question his story. Mark's lies weren't limited to his educational achievements. In 1996, he had been sent home early from his mission for the LDS Church, though the reasons for this remain unclear. Shortly afterward, he suffered a significant head injury from a fall, which his father later believed contributed to difficulties with concentration and learning. This period might have marked the beginning of his struggles and the development of the pattern of lies that would eventually lead to tragedy. By the summer of 2004, the couple was making preparations to move across the country to North Carolina. Laurie had quit her job, they had begun packing their belongings, and they were excited about starting a new chapter in their lives. Friends recalled how Laurie spoke enthusiastically about their plans, proud of her husband's achievement in being accepted to medical school. What Laurie didn't know was that there was no medical school acceptance. There was no future waiting for them in North Carolina. Everything she believed about their next steps was built on an elaborate fiction created by her husband. To add another layer to this tragedy, Laurie was approximately 5 weeks pregnant at the time. The couple was not just planning for a move, they were planning for a family. Mark's deception was about to impact not just his wife, but his unborn child as well. The stakes of his lies had never been higher. As the move date approached, the pressure on Mark must have been immense. His fictional acceptance to medical school was about to collide with reality. He had no plan for what would happen when they arrived in North Carolina and discovered there was no place for him at the university, no apartment waiting for them, no future as he had described it. Yet still, he maintained the charade. Even as they made final preparations, Mark continued to act the part of the excited medical student, discussing his future studies and career with friends and family. The web of lies had grown so large and so complex that there seemed to be no way out, except, perhaps, through an unthinkable act. Friday, July 16, 2004, began like any other day for Laurie Hacking. She went to work at Wells Fargo, continuing to tie up loose ends before their planned move. But it would end with a revelation that would shatter her world and set in motion a chain of events that would lead to her death. That afternoon, Laurie called the University of North Carolina to inquire about student housing and financial aid. It was a practical call, the kind any spouse might make when preparing for a major relocation. What she learned during that call changed everything. Mark had never been accepted to the medical school. In fact, he had never even applied. The university representative on the other end of the line had no record of Mark hacking in their system. No application, no acceptance letter, no housing arrangements, nothing. The future Lori thought she was moving toward simply didn't exist. Colleagues later reported that Lori left work early that day, visibly upset and in tears. One co-worker recalled how Lori's hands were shaking as she gathered her belongings and left the office. The foundation of her life had just crumbled beneath her feet. When confronted, Mark tried desperately to maintain his lies, telling Lori that there must have been a computer problem at the school. He even suggested that perhaps her call had been misdirected to the wrong department. But these explanations rang hollow as Lori began to dig deeper. Her suspicions aroused, Lori decided to check Mark's other claims. She soon discovered that Mark had not even graduated from the University of Utah, as he had claimed. 8 years of deception were unraveling all at once. The foundation of their relationship and of Mark's identity was crumbling. Everything Lori thought she knew about her husband and their future together was proving to be false. The man she had married, the life they had planned, the future they were working toward it was all an elaborate fabrication. Over the weekend of July 17th to 18th, 2004, Lori grappled with this devastating betrayal. Friends reported later that she seemed withdrawn and distressed during this time, though she shared with very few people the true nature of what she had discovered. On Sunday night, July 18th, after spending the weekend processing this betrayal, Lori wrote Mark a note expressing her intention to leave him. For Mark, whose entire self-image was built on these fabrications, the prospect of losing his wife and facing the public exposure of his lies was apparently too much to bear. In that moment, Mark Hacking stood at a crossroads. He could confess everything, face the consequences of his actions, and attempt to rebuild his life honestly. Or he could eliminate the person who threatened to expose his carefully constructed false reality. Tragically, he chose the latter. In the early morning hours of Monday, July 19th, 2004, while Lori slept in their bed, Mark took a .22 caliber rifle and shot his wife in the head at close range. The single gunshot ended Lori's life instantly, and with it, the life of their unborn child. What happened next reveals the calculated nature of Mark's actions following the murder. He wrapped Lori's body in a carpet from their apartment. He carried her body down to her car and placed it in the back seat. He drove to a dumpster near a local convenience store and disposed of her body. He then purchased a new mattress to replace the blood-stained one and threw the old mattress in a dumpster. He attempted to clean up the blood in the apartment, though investigators would later find traces of it. These weren't the panicked actions of someone who had made a terrible mistake in the heat of passion. They were the deliberate choices of someone trying to cover up a heinous crime. At 10:49 a.m. that same morning, Mark called 911 to report Lori missing. He told police that she had gone for her usual morning jog at Memory Grove Park and City Creek Canyon, but never returned home or arrived at work. He claimed to have discovered she was missing when he woke up around 10 a.m. and called her workplace, only to learn she hadn't shown up. To add credibility to his story, Mark, or someone else, moved Lori's car to Memory Grove, where it was later found by police. Initially, a woman claimed to have seen Lori jogging in the area, but she later retracted her statement, realizing she had been mistaken. Mark's performance as the concerned husband began immediately. He appeared distraught in media interviews, pleading for help in finding his wife. With tears in his eyes, he begged for Lori's safe return and asked the community to assist in the search efforts. "I just want her back. I just want to know where she is," he told reporters, his voice cracking with what appeared to be genuine emotion. "If anybody has seen anything, Please let us know. Mark participated in search efforts, joining over 1,200 volunteers who combed the areas where Lori supposedly went jogging. He distributed flyers with Lori's picture and description, coordinated with search teams, and maintained the appearance of a desperate husband searching for his missing wife. But investigators quickly noticed inconsistencies in his story and behavior. From the beginning, police had questions about Mark's account. A pivotal moment came when they discovered that Mark had purchased a new mattress the same morning he reported Lori missing. This seemingly small detail raised immediate red flags for investigators. As they dug deeper, they uncovered physical evidence that contradicted Mark's story. Blood was found in multiple locations in the couple's apartment, including on a knife in the bedroom, on the headboard of the bed, and on the bed rail. Blood was also discovered in Lori's car, and the driver's seat had been adjusted for someone taller than Lori, suggesting Mark had driven it. DNA testing confirmed that the blood belonged to Lori. The old mattress was found in a dumpster near their apartment, with visible bloodstains. Meanwhile, Mark's erratic behavior continued. On July 20th, just a day after reporting Lori missing, he was found running naked outside a hotel. Witnesses described him as disoriented and incoherent. He was subsequently admitted to a psychiatric ward for evaluation. This bizarre behavior further fueled doubts about his initial account of Lori's disappearance. Was this the action of a man overwhelmed by grief and worry for his missing wife? Or was it the breakdown of someone whose carefully constructed lies were beginning to collapse around him? It was there, in the psychiatric ward on July 24th, that Mark allegedly confessed to his brothers, Scott and Lance Hacking. According to reports, he told them he had shot Lori while she was sleeping and disposed of her body in a dumpster. "I killed her. I killed her. I shot her in the head," he reportedly told his brothers, breaking down in tears as he confessed. This confession, though not made directly to law enforcement, became a crucial turning point in the case. Based on this information and the mounting evidence, police arrested Mark on August 2, 2004, on suspicion of aggravated murder. First-degree murder charges were filed a week later, on August 9, 2004. The medical examiner's office worked with the limited evidence available. Without Lori's body, they had to rely on the blood evidence found in the apartment and car. Based on this evidence and Mark's alleged confession, they determined that Lori had died from a gunshot wound to the head. As the investigation progressed, public interest in the case grew. The story of a missing pregnant woman, allegedly murdered by her husband who had been living a double life, captured national attention. News outlets across the country reported on developments in the case, and the search for Lori's body became a focus of intensive media coverage. Following Mark's alleged confession, authorities began an extensive search of the Salt Lake County landfill. This was a massive undertaking. Searchers had to sift through tons of garbage in challenging conditions. The search area was narrowed down based on waste disposal records that tracked when and where garbage from the dumpster where Mark allegedly disposed of Lori's body would have been taken. Even with this information, searchers were looking for a body in approximately 4,000 tons of garbage. For 33 days, teams of officers, cadaver dogs, and volunteers worked tirelessly in difficult and emotionally taxing conditions. The search involved more than 70 officers from various agencies working in 3 daily shifts, often in summer heat exceeding 90 degrees Fahrenheit and surrounded by the overwhelming stench of the landfill. Their persistence paid off on October 1, 2004, when they finally discovered Lori's remains. They also found the carpet that Mark had used to wrap her body before placing it in the dumpster. Newspapers found in the same area of the landfill, dated around the time of Lori's disappearance, helped confirm that they had found the right location. Salt Lake City Police Chief Rick Dintz announced the discovery to the public, stating, "This was a search for a needle in a haystack, and we found the needle." The discovery brought a sense of closure to the investigation and to Lori's family, who had been waiting for months to give her a proper burial. The discovery of Lori's body provided the final, devastating confirmation of what had happened to her. Medical examiners were able to confirm that she had died from a gunshot wound to the head, consistent with Mark's alleged confession. Lori was laid to rest on October 9, 2004, in a ceremony attended by family, friends, and many community members who had been touched by her story. Her funeral became not just a moment of mourning, but a celebration of her life and the positive impact she had on those around her. In a symbolic gesture that spoke volumes about the family's feelings toward Mark, Lori's mother later made the decision to have the name Hacking removed from Lori's gravestone. In its place, she had engraved the Portuguese word filhinha, meaning little daughter, a poignant reclaiming of Lori's identity separate from the man who had taken her life. What would drive a man to kill his wife rather than face the consequences of his lies? Mark's father believed his son just snapped under the pressure of his deception being revealed. The elaborate facade he had maintained for years was collapsing, and with it his entire identity. When faced with the prospect of public humiliation and his wife leaving him, he chose to commit the ultimate act of violence. Forensic psychologist Kathy Yates, who analyzed the case, suggested that Mark might have felt entitled to a more successful life, but lacked the motivation to achieve it honestly. This led to his grandiosity and pathological lying. "Some people find it easier to lie about achievements than to actually achieve," she noted. "When those lies are threatened with exposure, the consequences can be devastating." Mark's family background may have also played a role. Growing up in a high-achieving Mormon family, his father, a pediatrician, his brothers, successful professionals, created immense pressure to succeed. Rather than admit failure, Mark chose to fabricate achievements, creating a persona that aligned with family expectations. The deception grew over time. What might have started as small exaggerations about his academic performance evolved into an elaborate fiction about his entire educational career and professional future. With each lie, the stakes grew higher and the potential consequences of exposure more severe. Most disturbing was Mark's later claim that he killed Lori out of love, believing he was somehow saving her from the pain of his deception, a profoundly distorted rationalization that reveals a severe disconnection from reality. This twisted logic suggests a mindset where murder could be framed as an act of protection rather than the ultimate betrayal. Whatever his internal justifications, the facts remain clear. When faced with the exposure of his lies and the potential loss of his relationship, Mark chose to end Lori's life rather than face the consequences of his actions. It was an act of selfish preservation, prioritizing his false image over Lori's very existence. On October 29, 2004, Mark Hacking initially pleaded not guilty to the charge of first-degree murder. However, on April 15, 2005, he changed his plea to guilty as part of a deal with prosecutors, who agreed to drop other charges, including 3 counts of obstructing justice. This change of plea spared Lori's family the additional trauma of a lengthy trial, where details of her death and Mark's deception would be rehashed in public. The guilty plea was a small mercy in an otherwise devastating situation. On June 6, 2005, Mark was sentenced to 6 years to life in prison, which was the maximum sentence allowed under Utah law at the time for first-degree murder. The seemingly lenient minimum term, 6 years, was a function of Utah's indeterminate sentencing laws, which granted the Board of Pardons and Parole significant discretion in determining how long a convicted person would actually serve. At the sentencing hearing, Mark expressed remorse for his actions and apologized to both the Hacking and Soares families. "I am responsible for the death of my wife and unborn child," he told the court, his voice breaking. "I am not seeking sympathy or leniency. I am only seeking the opportunity to say I'm sorry." Lori's mother, Thelma Soares, delivered a powerful statement, describing the murder as a senseless waste of 3 lives and expressing the profound pain and lasting impact of her daughter's death. "Lori was a remarkable young woman," she said. "She deserved so much more than this. She deserved a husband who valued truth, who valued her life more than his own pride." Judge Denise Lindbergh, who presided over the sentencing, characterized Mark Hacking as the epitome of extreme dishonesty and recommended that he remain incarcerated for a very long time. "The degree of deception you engaged in, Mr. Hacking, is truly stunning," she said. "You not only took a life, but you did so to preserve a fiction that you yourself created." In July 2005, the Utah Board of Pardons declared that Mark Hacking would not be eligible for parole until at least 2035, effectively imposing a minimum sentence of 30 years. This decision came after significant public outcry regarding the initial potential for an earlier parole eligibility. Upon hearing this news, Lori's mother expressed her relief, stating that the initial 6-year minimum sentence had felt like an insult to her daughter's memory. 30 years seems more appropriate given the calculated nature of this crime, she told reporters at the time. The case also had a lasting impact on Utah's legal landscape with the passage of Lori's Law, which mandates a minimum of 15 years before parole consideration for individuals convicted of first-degree murder in the state. This legislative change ensures that future victims' families will not have to face the prospect of seeing their loved ones' killers released after just a few years. In 2006, it was reported that Mark Hacking had been selling personal items online from prison, a practice he later agreed to cease after public outcry. This incident further inflamed public sentiment against him, as many viewed it as an attempt to profit from his notoriety. As of the available information, Mark Hacking's earliest possible release date remains 2035, when he will be 59 years old. He currently serves his sentence at the Utah State Prison in Draper, where he has largely remained out of the public eye since his conviction. The murder of Lori Hacking had a profound and lasting impact on her family, friends, and the wider community. The ripple effects of this tragedy continue to be felt years after her death. To honor Lori's memory and her commitment to service and education, the Lori K. Soares Hacking Memorial Scholarship was established at the University of Utah's David Eccles School of Business. This scholarship provides assistance to disadvantaged women pursuing education, ensuring that Lori's life continues to have a positive impact even after her death. Lori's former instructor at the University of Utah, who helped establish the scholarship, noted, "Lori was passionate about education and helping others. This scholarship allows her spirit of generosity to continue touching lives." Fundraisers were organized to support this scholarship, further demonstrating the community's desire to keep Lori's spirit alive. These events brought together people who knew Lori personally and those who had been touched by her story, creating a community of support around her memory. For Lori's family, particularly her mother, Thelma Soares, the grief and sense of injustice remain. You never get over losing a child, Thelma said in an interview years after Laurie's death. You just learn to live with the pain. The symbolic act of removing Mark's last name from Laurie's headstone and replacing it with Filhinha reflects their desire to reclaim Laurie's identity separate from the man who took her life. Mark's family also suffered in the aftermath of the murder. They were faced with the difficult task of reconciling their love for their son and brother with the horrific act he had committed. They expressed their deep sorrow for Laurie's death and the immense pain inflicted upon the Soares family, while also conveying their continued love and support for Mark. The case prompted discussions about the psychology of deception and the warning signs of pathological lying. Mental health professionals used the case to highlight the potential dangers of persistent deception in relationships and the psychological mechanisms that allow such extensive lying to continue unchecked. Laurie's final resting place in the Orem City Cemetery has become a place of remembrance for those who knew her and for those whose lives were touched by her story. Visitors often leave flowers and small mementos, a testament to the lasting impact her life and death had on the community. The story of Laurie Hacking isn't just another true crime case. It's a stark reminder of how destructive deception can be when it infiltrates our most intimate relationships. In the quiet moments between the headlines and courtroom proceedings, there exists a simple truth. Laurie Hacking died because she discovered the reality behind her husband's carefully constructed persona. Her only crime was learning the truth. Perhaps what makes this case so haunting is its ordinariness. Mark Hacking wasn't a monster from birth. He was someone who made one small lie, then another, until he became so entangled in his own deception that murder seemed like the only escape. And Laurie? She was someone who trusted, who believed, who planned for a future with the man she loved, who carried within her the promise of new life. She embodied the faith we all place in those closest to us, that they are who they claim to be, that their love is genuine, that their words reflect reality. Every relationship requires trust. Every day, we choose to believe what our partners, friends, and family tell us about themselves. The Hacking case forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. How well do we really know the people we love? The scholarship in Laurie's name ensures that something positive emerges from this tragedy. Young women pursue their education because of her memory achieving authentically what Mark could only pretend to accomplish. In this way, Laurie's legacy becomes one of truth and genuine achievement, a powerful counterpoint to the deception that ended her life. As we navigate our own relationships, perhaps the lesson of this case is not to approach others with suspicion, but to create spaces where honesty is valued above achievement, where authenticity is prized above appearance, where the truth, however difficult, can be spoken without fear. As we reflect on this case, we might ask ourselves, what small deceptions do we tolerate in our own lives? What truths are we afraid to face? And most importantly, what would our world look like if we valued honesty over the appearance of success? Laurie Hacking never got to answer these questions. Her story ended on that July morning in 2004. But perhaps by remembering her, we can find the courage to live more truthfully in her honor. If you found this story compelling, please consider subscribing to True Crime Diaries and click on the notification bell. Your support helps us continue to share these important stories that remind us of the value of truth in our relationships.